Brief History of Mexican Revolution of 1910 to 1940.
After 34 years of order and progress, the aging dictator Diaz basks in the glow of his regime's perceived success. But beneath the surface, 90% of rural laborers own no land, their communal fields swallowed by a few powerful families. Industrial unrest boils over as workers demand fair wages and an end to the favoritism shown to foreign capitalists. When a wealthy reformer dares to challenge Diaz at the polls, the dictator responds with imprisonment and fraud. Escaping to the United States, Madero calls for all Mexicans to rise in arms on November 20th, 1910. In the North, a former bandit transforms into a revolutionary leader, drawing the dispossessed to his cause. In the South, Zapata rallies villagers under the cry of Tierra y Libertad, demanding the return of stolen lands. The fall of this key border city exposes the federal army's weakness and signals the end for Diaz. Resigning to avoid total collapse, the Butcher of Mexico sails for exile, warning that Madero has unleashed a tiger. The Apostle of Democracy enters the capital in triumph, ending the first phase of the revolution. The alliance soon fractures. Zapata demands immediate land reform that Madero is too cautious to grant. Madero wins the presidency, but he inherits a country where the old guard still holds the guns and the peasants still hunger for justice. While Madero struggles with democratic legalism, a conservative conspiracy brews within his own military. Believing instability hurts American business, the ambassador helps broker a plot to overthrow the president. For 10 tragic days, rebel and federal forces turn the heart of the capital into a bloody battlefield. The president trusts Huerta to lead his defense, a decision that will cost him his life. Huerta betrays Madero, signing the Pact of the Embassy to seize power for himself. On February 22, 1913, Madero and Pino Suarez are murdered, igniting a new, even bloodier phase of the war. Refusing to recognize the usurper, Carranza calls for the restoration of constitutional order. In Chihuahua, Villa amasses a massive peasant army, rolling from victory to victory along the railways. Tensions with the U.S. culminate in an occupation of Mexico's main port to block arms destined for Huerta. In the bloodiest battle of the campaign, the Division of the North crushes Huerta's federal army. Just 17 months after his coup, Huerta is forced to flee into exile, leaving a power vacuum behind. The Big Four have won, but the alliance between the Northerners and the peasants is already starting to fray. Revolutionary leaders meet to decide Mexico's future, but the divide between political and social goals is too deep. Refusing to submit to the convention's authority, the Constitutionalists retreat to Veracruz. The two great peasant leaders form an alliance, their combined forces representing the most radical wing of the revolution. Occupying the capital, Villa remarks that the chair is too big for us. They are warriors, not politicians. A pragmatic farmer turned general, Obregón prepares a modern defensive strategy to break Villa's cavalry. Obregón chooses the grain-growing region of Celaya as the site for a decisive showdown. Villa underestimates his rival, repeatedly ordering head-on charges that are decimated by Obregón's modern defenses. Even in agony, Obregon remains the architect of victory. Villa's once invincible division of the North is broken. Defeated and fleeing back to Chihuahua, Villa ceases to be a national force, turning back to guerrilla tactics. As the fighting continues, new voices emerge, demanding that the revolution's promises extend to all citizens. Intellectuals and journalists risk everything to ensure the social revolution isn't buried by political ambition. By late 1915, the Constitutionalists hold the upper hand, but the country remains a world turned upside down. Obregon and the radicals outmaneuver Carranza, drafting a document far more progressive than the first chief intended. This cornerstone of the revolution declares that the nation owns its soil and subsoil, including oil and minerals. In 1919, Carranza's agents eliminate the champion of the South, but his dream of land and liberty is now law. Attempting to name his own successor, Carranza is murdered in 1920, marking the end of his conservative rule. With Obregon's election, a decade of major civil war effectively ends, and the era of Reconstruction begins. The new Ministry of Education uses art to forge a national identity, celebrating Mexico's indigenous roots. In 1923, the last of the iconic rebel chiefs is silenced as the revolutionary generals tighten their grip on power. To end the cycle of coups, Calles establishes a party that will dominate Mexican politics for the next 7 decades. The enforcement of anti-clerical laws leads to another bloody conflict, testing the new state's authority. Becoming president in 1934, Cardenas finally fulfills the agrarian promises made by Zapata decades earlier. In 1938, the revolution achieves its ultimate goal of sovereignty, wresting control of natural resources from foreign hands. 1 million lives were lost to build a modern Mexico, a nation still guided by the ideals of the Great Upheaval.